The museum elves or something come in and take down the shows and put new shows up. It's just a lot of work. We'll spend the next 5 days, getting Luckenbach Legacy ready to be seen by the public.
The Texas Hill Country is one of the most beautiful places on earth. In this podcast, recent Hill Country resident Tom Fox visits with the people and organizations that make this one of the most unique areas of Texas. Join Tom as he explores the people, places, and their activities of the Texas Hill Country.
In this episode, I have back Darrell Beauchamp, Executive Director of the Western Museum of Art, to talk about the next exhibit with Becky Crouch Patterson. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode. And today I'm thrilled to be back with Darrell Beauchamp, the Executive Director at the Museum of Western Art. Darrell, first of all, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tom.
Darrell, you're almost in transition to a new show, and that's one of the things I'm here to visit with you about, Luckenbach Legacy, Becky Crouch Patterson, and all things Luckenbach. What can you tell us about this exciting exhibit?
Yeah, we are in transition, and what's really funny is people think that the museum elves or something come in and take down the shows and put new shows up. It's just a lot of work. We'll spend the next 5 days, getting Luckenbach Legacy ready to be seen by the public. Luckenbach Legacy is the story of Becky Crouch Patterson. She is an author, a designer, and an artist in her own. She happens to be the daughter of Hondo Crouch, who was the guy who made the Imagineer, who made Luckenbach, what Luckenbach is, with Willie Whalen and the Boys and the Luckenbach Dance Hall and all of that. So she grew up in that environment, grew up with Hondo and all of those celebrities. And since his passing in 1976, she's been the driving force behind Luckenbach and making it the legend that it is. She and her sister and her children now, her son, and they all own Luckenbach. If you can own a town, that's what they do. But they're the driving forces behind Luckenbach, Texas. And Becky and I are friends, and we've been talking for a while about showing a sample of her work. So she's a painter. And her work falls, for me, in a lot of Texas folk art looks, telling stories about her place in this universe. They're all very personal to her. And not only is she a painter, but she's a textilist. She's done a lot of liturgical tapestries, church tapestries. And so we'll have an entire room with her textiles. She has done jackets for people like Gary P. Nunn, and Willie Nelson wrote the foreword to her latest book, because she's written 3 books about Luckenbach and the ranch that she grew up on, called The Ranch That Was Us. She's won a lot of awards for her connection to the Texas folk world, to Luckenbach. And we thought that it would be just a fabulous, colorful, bright, fun show to have. And so we're going to open that show on July 16. It's an RSVP only event. People are still welcome if they want RSVP and call the museum, and we'll get them a ticket to come. It's a free ticket, but we kind of have a handle on how many people are going to be here, because we're going to have a lot of food, a lot of libations, a mariachi band, a trick roper is going to be doing one of the Charo ropers. And so we've got a lot going on with it, and we just need to handle on the numbers. But if people want to come, all they have to do is call the museum and RSVP, and we'll get them a ticket for the event. Opens July 16, runs through September 17. So it's about a 60-day show, which is about average for our 2 smaller galleries. She's going to be in 2 galleries with, there's probably 35 paintings, 15, 20 tapestries. We're going to have Hondo Crouch's bullet-ridden guitar. We're going to have his old hat, Gary P. Nunn's road jacket that he's worn in millions of concerts. Her books on display, prints for sale, so art will be sold. We just think it's a fun, different look here in summertime. And what a better way to kick off the summer, the heat of the summer, than by doing Luckenbach, Texas.
Darrell, there are going to be other events around this exhibit. One of the ones that intrigued me the most was storytelling.
Yeah, one of the things we're going to do, and we encourage people to watch our website, because Luckenbach is about stories. And Becky tells wonderful stories. We're going to have one Saturday where we do storytellers. And that's going to be exciting, to have people come in and tell tales, tell yarns, the oral tradition, if you will. So many people have given up on that, sitting around the knee of a great storyteller and letting that person just weave the story. So especially for kids, I think that'll be a great learning challenge. So not only is this a visual medium, a visual show, which most museums are, but we're also going to involve the oratory, if you will, of storytelling. Songwriting, for example. We've talked about doing Bernie Nelson as a storyteller and other songwriters, because there's several in the area Walt Wilkins comes to mind, who's a songwriter, singer out of Nashville, lives in the area. We might get those guys to come in and talk about storytelling through music, but storytelling is a part of what. But I think one of the things that Luckenbach's most famous for is sitting on the porch, just coming in and sitting down on the porch and having a cold drink and listening to the yarns and tales. And so we're working on gathering up older storytellers, some of those gentlemen and ladies who, and have a Saturday where we're telling stories.
I don't know if this was conscious or not, but I really see a direct tie to the 50th anniversary of the Kerrville Folk Festival, where some of the performers that I saw actually were at the first show.
I hadn't thought about that, and it was not conscious. But, yeah, it would be a great thing. I should probably reach out to Mary Muse and say, would you like to work on something, coordinate it with us on storytelling through music? Because you're exactly right. I was out there at Happy Valley, and that was fun to see some of the great people who were involved in the very first one back. And throughout the years, so many of them have come through there. Guy Clark, and there was just so many great storytellers that came through the Folk Festival.
I took my wife for the first time this year. I've been to four in 4 different decades, and I told her, I said, this is just what Austin was like in the 70s.
Yeah, it really is. It's pretty cool. And what we're trying to capture with this is a throwback to that era of a little freer attitudes. People were a little more willing to discuss versus just argue. And I think Becky Crouch Patterson does a beautiful job of storytelling in her own, telling the stories of her life. One of the objects in the collection that'll be really cool for people to look at is a door that we actually took off her kitchen. We went out to her ranch and we took the door off the kitchen and brought it to the museum, and it'll be on display. And the reason it's important is because she painted the door to tell her life, the story. It's got her grandfather and father and her grandmother and mother and her children and husband, and it's the family tree. It's the story of life that she's added to over the years as that's something that needs to be painted in, and she'd go in there and paint and so it's a story in itself. It's an old kitchen door, but what a great visual, And then there's tapestries that have hung in everything from James Avery jewelry to local community church here at Fredericksburg, Comfort. And so that'll be a visual. People want to see those. And then her stories in paintings. She's been working with some really great teachers. And it's just going to be a visual, bright, lively, happy show that tells about her sense of place in the community.
I've had opportunity to visit with you a few times now, and I've heard several themes in each podcast, but I want to pick up on one you just mentioned, which was, and I wrote it down, discuss.
Yeah.
And you are a big proponent of, yes, we can have different point of view, but let's sit down and discuss
Well,
it.
and it's really funny you should mention that, because recently at the Texas Association of Museums Planning Committee meeting, we're going to have a big workshop in San Antonio next year. And I'm on the planning committee for that. And we started talking about it, and somebody said they had heard your podcast that included me. And they said, and I was particularly struck with the "let's talk about it" phrase. And I thought, do I say that much that it's become a theme in my world? And I guess I do. But I see so many people who are just yelling at each other. They think if they can say it louder with more enthusiasm, they're going to be right. And we're all about discussion of the past. We're all about discussion of the future, where it goes. You may not agree with the taking of lands from the Native Americans, but it happened. So let's discuss it, and let's talk about how we keep it from happening in the future. Let's talk about it. Discussion is important. A reasonable, articulated. I've pretty much quit watching television because I'm tired of people with the same exact values blasting a group of other values. It's quit being a discussion as much as a monologue. It's no longer a dialogue, but a monologue. And we want to have dialogue here. If you don't like something that we're doing, the American West, or story that we're telling, then let's talk about that. Let's discuss it. And so I started saying that in part of what I do. And the Texas Association of Museums planning on a conference theme, and one of them is let's talk about it. Let's have those discussions. Because every museum faces that same problem. We need to do a better job in this country of discussion. And I think one of the thought leaders on that has got to be the museum industry, because that's what we do. Every day, all day, we have host events where we can discuss issues that are important. And that's what we're going to do here at the Museum of Western Art.
Well, that really transitions into the next topic I wanted to talk about, which is the current exhibit, which ends on, I believe, July 9th.
In July 9th, Saturday, we'll be closing out at this exhibition and putting up the Luckenbach Legacy. We've had a lot of exhibitions at this museum in the last 40 years, but we've not had one in a while that has had the impact that The Heavens Declare has had. 2 years ago, visiting with an artist named Denise LaRue Malky, and she and I got to talking about doing a show of this ilk. This comment was, again, we were having a discussion. We see cowboys and Indians and trappers and fur traders and saloon girls and the people of the American West all the time. Even the animals, horses, cows. We don't ever talk about the landscape. And she and I, wow, we really don't. We don't have shows dedicated to the landscapes. So we started talking about the landscapes. And one of the things that she does so well is the heavens. And that kind of led us to Psalm 19:1 that says, the heavens declare the glory of God and the works of his hands through the firmament, through the landscapes. And well, why don't we put together a show of landscapes? And so we started shaking the bushes a little bit to see who might be interested and started coming up with fabulous, mostly Western landscapists, people who do the American West, guys like Phil Bob Borman, David Griffin, John Taft, G. Russell Case, Phil Stark, are all known to the Western world. Denise Malky in that group. But then we thought, but man, I know a great landscapist. She's not Western, but she is a great landscapist out of Austin, Texas, named Laurel Daniel. And we reached out to Laurel. I'd love to be a part of that. And she does a lot of seascapes, things you don't think of as the American West, and yet the American West ends at the sea. You know, it's got the Gulf of Mexico. It's got a lot of sea. And we started putting this show together. And we told them one thing: we want your illustration, your concept of the heavens declare the glory of God, Psalm 19:1, and go with it. And there were people who were in objection to that a little bit. We're going to introduce a Bible verse. That's interesting, a public museum doing a Bible verse. But yet it's a thing that is across all faiths. It doesn't matter your faith, there's a creation story. And so we just relied on that Old Testament Psalm 19:1 to say, okay, this is what got us started, and go with it. And you had to have some faith that they were going to do it, and boy, it was paid back 1,000-fold, because this show has been one of our most successful shows. The attendance has been through the roof. We've sold about 42 or 3% of the show, so it's been good financially for the museum and the artist, and it's just driven traffic. Every Saturday it's just been packed in here. Even today we've had 100 today. We'll have 240 tonight for a special party, because they built a party around, this is about to go away. This is the last time our group's going to meet. Can we meet there? And what a great thing that's been for the museum and for the artist, and introduced in brand new subject matter. We've had a few people who've come in and go, boy, where are the cowboys? Where are the Indians? You know? And let's talk about that. Let's talk about why this is an important part of the American landscape. And people who came in who were disappointed that we didn't have more cowboys and Indians up, we opened the vault, pulled out the racks, and let them look at it right there in the vaults. We offer a vault tour to visitors. We're confident enough in our security systems and all that they can see behind the scenes a little bit. We don't wander. We do take people back there and check them in, check them out. But it's been fun, because we've gotten the best of both worlds out of it. Great landscapes on the walls, and people get to see what they come to see, if they came to see the Cowboys and Indians. It's been a fabulous show for us. 3 months. A long show, actually, from April all the way to July 9. But it's been one that, I don't know if we'll do it again in a while, but we'll do something similar. Try to break out, get away from those old standbys, occasionally do something unique and different.
I'm going to expand from the Judeo-Christian theme to, that really is a world theme. I've studied creation stories literally from China to India to Greece to Western Europe to the Native Americans. And they all have that. Yeah,
and there's not a single faith that we could come up with that doesn't have a creationism story, a story of origin, if you will, an origin story. So this is not just a Christian show. A lot of Christian groups have met, had their worship services here, and were in this environment staring at the glory of God, and they saw the Christian world. We've had people who were non-Christian in here, and they saw their world. And so it fits in whatever category. Every faith has an origin story. And Psalm 19:1 saying the heavens declare the glory of God. And we just truncated it and put the heavens declare. You know, a celebration of the skies, basically. Who doesn't look up and see the sky every day? Everything that we do is under the sky, and yet we tend to ignore it in the Western art world.
In addition to the, obviously, variety of artists you had, it was the variety of paintings and photographs that they had created.
Yeah, painting styles.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to say, okay, we got all these Western themed, and then we got to look and who would break that mold a little bit? And we got something going by here. But who would break that mold a little bit to, and it just keeps getting better. But which artist would break that mold? And they would be guys like David. I don't know what to tell you. I can hear myself think. Sorry about that.
Guys like David.
Guys like David Grossman, who does an abstract world. David's work's not Western in its nature. It's a lot of times you have to look at it for a long time and figure it out, and then, oh my goodness, it pops out at you. Tim Newton, the photographer, who is just fabulous. So we tried to do Michael McGrin, who does a more abstract look. We tried to bring in people, artists, who were a little outside of that traditional Western genre. So it's been a lot of fun to see that as well.
I think most people, first of all, let's start with, it's just humidity. When you originally told me about this exhibit, you started with that, and then we saw all the various forms of humidity, and frankly, sometimes no humidity, because we had the sky painted.
Yeah.
And so we saw the heavens without humidity, but I think most people would, at least in Texas, would think of a thunderstorm or the clouds rolling in, but it was even much more broader than that.
Yeah, it really was, in that it's just humidity. Started with my friend and the great painter Phil Bob Borman. I said to Phil Bob one day, how do you describe what you do? And he says, man, I just paint humidity. I thought, well, that's a great way of putting it, because he does clouds. He does big clouds. But when we got to talking about the heavens declare, sometimes the heavens are clouds. Sometimes they're sunless, if you will. They don't have any sun. So we have some nightscapes in the show as well. And we tend to talk about the earth, and we don't ever look up. We don't look at the heavens, if you will. And so that's what we were wanting to do in this show, is look up. And they're from different perspectives, right? Through the trees in some cases, or looking at a vista in the long distance. And a couple of the painting, that may be a 3-foot tall painting and only have 1 inch of landscape at the bottom. It's all skyscape. In a couple of paintings, it's a lot of sea with a small ribbon of clouds, but they're very impactful. So it was up to the artist to describe their interpretation of the heavens declare. And I think they just did a masterful job. So it's a good show with a lot of different variety in it. And we're sorry that people didn't get to see it if they're hearing this after July 9th. So.
Did you get new attendants or new people who typically
absolutely.
Would not come into this museum?
Yeah, I really did. I had a lot of people who came in and said, I came to see the heavens declare. They heard about it, saw it in the magazine, saw it on the local press, heard about it on your show. And they came in because they wanted to see the heavens declare. And then they said, oh my gosh, this is a great museum. We'll be back, and we're hoping that's the case. That's what we want to do. So yeah, a lot of new museum goers, a lot of former museum goers, people who used to come to the museum, and I think they got tired of that same old Cowboys and Indians theme, and this breaks that up a little bit for them. And then once we get that, they come in and say, nothing has changed, and we do a different show every 90 days, a different theme, different look. So if you're a member of the museum, you used to be, come back and join us again. This is the kind of thing we're doing. So, yeah, new memberships. A lot of people who are now supporting the museum who weren't even aware of it, and they came because of the heavens declare. So that's always exciting.
It was very exciting. It was very exciting to attend the exhibit. It was very exciting to see your enthusiasm for it, to see some of the articles I read in print about it. It was perhaps one of the most unique exhibits I've seen, certainly recently, and can't wait to see what you come up with next.
What's funny is I was talking to a guy today about a show in 2025, and people say, 2025? That's 3 years off. Yeah, we do our planning. All good museums do their planning 2 and 3 years out. It takes that long. We started planning the Heavens Declare 2 years ago. 2 years before it ever opened. It was just that thought had to be planted, and we have to work with it and live with it, and then what if this and what if that, before you ever could pull the trigger on it. We've got shows scheduled out through 2024 already, and that's what's exciting. What's happening in the spring of 2024, I can tell you. I don't want to tell you, because I want it to be, we build the excitement through these things. But one of the goals is to always have something new and fresh, different, that you can, it's easy to just put things on the wall and leave them forever. The locals don't like that because they don't have a chance to come see new stuff once they've seen it. And a museum doesn't need to get that reputation. I'm down at the burger shop recently, and somebody says, well, I've been back in 7 years because nothing ever. Yeah, it changes all the time. You can't use that as an excuse. And if Maud and Claude and their little dog Pepper pull through in their RV from Rhode Island, and this is the one time they're going to see the Museum of Western Art, we want it to be a spectacular exhibition for them. But at the same time, Bob, who lives across the street, every 90 days he can come over here and see something new and different. So it's got to be both to both groups. It's got to be something they want to see, or when they came, they were proud that they saw it. And that's what all good museums do, is constantly change up the feel, the look, have the old standards. I get people all the time who come in and go, I sure don't want to see, I want to see that painting in the Rainbow Teepee, the Roy Anderson piece. We haven't had it in a while. Oh, I love that painting. So we're reminded that just because we see them on a regular basis in the vault, it doesn't mean that. So it's kind of being at the national museums, the Smithsonian, and not going to see the Ruby Sloopers. There's some things in our collection people come in to see every single time they come in. They love them that much. But we want, no matter if that's up or not, we want it to be a great show for the visiting people and for the locals. And I think we're accomplishing it.
You certainly accomplished with Let the Heavens Declare. I can't wait to see Luckenbach Legacy.
And I can't tell people enough about Luckenbach Legacy, how much fun it's going to be. It's a bright show. It is fun to look at. It's to see some of the things from Luckenbach. Hondo's guitar with a bullet hole in it. There's a story there. Becky's books that include Hondo, My Father, Luckenbach, The Center of the Known Universe, and our latest book, which is the story of her ranch, called The Ranch That Was Us, and 150, 200 years of history in the Hill Country. She's a Renaissance kind of woman. She paints, she sculpts, she does textiles. It's fun, and it really is a fun, and she's a great personality, and I'm sure she'll be here a lot. We're going to let people come meet Becky, and it'll be in 2 galleries, and in our main vault, we'll have works from our permanent collection, and it's going to run from July 16 to September 17, and then we start our fall annual roundup on September 22nd. Big event for people. It's a ticketed event. It's our fall fundraiser, big fun fall kickoff. We'll have 100 works from 40 different artists, nationally known and recognized artists. It's a chance to support the museum, buy art, and the museum gets a portion of it, buy tickets to support us. It's when we kick off every year our annual fundraising goals to get us through the next year. So always something fun and exciting.
Let me put one more tie into the Kerrville Folk Festival. The night I attended, Bob Livingston performed. Bob Livingston performed at the
first one.
First when he performed at the 50th, he was an original member of the Los Gonzo Band.
Yeah.
So it all ties together.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought about that. Mary Muse and her group does such a great job out there at Kerrville Folk Festival. And we're just proud to be another part of the tourism scene in Kerrville and the Hill Country. Voted recently the #1 tourism venue in Kerrville, in the area. Selected to be a member of the top 10 Western art museums in the country by True West magazine. They're going to announce their 2022 inductees into the top 10 this year, and we're probably going to be in it. The best information, I think we're going to be included again as a top 10 in the country, which that's always exciting when you're recognized by your peers and by the voting public, if you will. Always something to see and always something to do at the Museum of Western Art.
If someone wanted more information on either membership or upcoming exhibitions, where would they go?
The simplest places there's 2 places. Facebook, we have a huge Facebook presence. Museum of Western Art Kerrville is the way you would put it in, or make sure you get us. We're always posting to that. Of course, we're on Twitter and all of those, the social medias, so whichever one you're used to doing. Or you can go out to www.museumofwesternart.com, and that'll get you, there's web pages out there. You can do a virtual tour that's been attended by 35,000. You go out and click on the virtual tour, and it flies you through this building in a virtual sense, and so that's exciting to see the building. But we're always sending it. We send in an e-newsletter every Tuesday, so they can get on board that, or they can call the museum at 830-896-2553, or visit us at 1550 Bandera Highway in Kerrville, Texas. We're open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 4. And kind of like that old car dealer in Carthage, Texas, I'll meet you at 2 in the morning if I know you're coming. We want people to be here. We want them to enjoy what it is we have to offer, because we're a top museum in the country, and we'd like to show it off. It's really a lot of fun.
Darrell, it's always great fun to visit with you, and I look forward to continuing this conversation.
We appreciate your support everywhere I go. People are talking about the Tom Fox podcast, and a lot of variety of different people. That's exciting. I enjoy listening to the guests because it's a variety of groups of people, and such a fun thing to do. It's a good way to learn about your community in the area.
And we won 2 awards in May.
Yeah, I heard that.
Until next time. This is Tom Fox again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Hill Country Podcast. I'm going to link to Deanna's Instagram, Facebook page, and other information in the show notes. I hope you will check out her stuff. It is really great. I really enjoyed meeting her and visiting with her. She's doing some really interesting and I think significant work around helping people through art. She's a passionate woman about art, and it really comes through when you have the chance to visit her. I hope you'll join me again next week on another episode of the award-winning Hill Country Podcast for a look at the people, places, and things of the Texas Hill Country.